the Pakistani people forgot and forgave, this army, and they again came back into power with Zia-ul-Haq ruling for another 11 years and General Musharraf ruling for another 11. And now General Asim Munir wants to follow through, and he wants to rule not for 5, not for 6, but for another 10 to 11 years. There are no two opinions. There is no doubt about it. But for doing that, you need public support, and he does not have the public support in Pakistan. The public support is for Imran Khan, for whom the people of Pakistan voted on the February 8, 2024 elections. And it's all well documented. I'm not just, making it all up. It's very well documented. So he did not have the public support. That was his problem. Then there is the Balochistan issue. All right, you do need to realize that there is a massive Balochistan issue, and the Pakistani military is not in control of Balochistan and in the blame game. And there is Kalboshan Jadev there as well, who's firing smoking gun with Pakistanis have. And under General Bajwa, the previous army chief who opened the Kartarpur corridor, it was a different policy. Now the policy, and of course, Pakistan Army's reputation and public image is so downtrodden that they needed a revival of their public image. So Balochistan became a very convenient excuse in-house to tell the officers that, see, they are, hitting us in Balochistan, we're gonna hit them in Kashmir, right? But in actual, the real reason was always the extension of General Asim Munir. He wants to become the next Zia-ul-Haq, and he wants to keep Imran Khan in jail. There is no doubt in any Pakistani's mind who's got a balanced head over his or her shoulders. But Geeta, why don't you guys address the elephant in the room? Asim Munir could not have done it without explicit approval or a nod at least from the dragon, from the red dragon, and you guys don't want to talk about
the friend, all-weather friend. We will talk about that, Adil. Keep that thought, because I'll just come back to you. Let's just go to Tony. Tony, you interviewed Adil Raja, and it must have been baffling to see the kind of information Adil Raja had to really divulge. In all this,
well, look,
where does the West really come?
I wasn't shocked. I was not shocked at all. Shocked is a word I don't think really honest journalists will use these days, because so much is really changing in the world, and also the extent to which the norms are being broken doesn't shock me. But I can tell you, I mean, I lived in Northern Ireland over here in the Troubles, and I'm very critical of our King Charles. I think he's taking a medieval-style autocratic role in Britain, and I think it's so important that the press, the media, is able to challenge the ruling elite in its own country. But I'm not shocked, because it's very well known here that you have the main people controlling these terrorist groups. These terrorist groups could not survive on their own. I found it interesting to see that these guys have disappeared completely, like in a twinkle of an eye. Where have they gone? Well, they obviously have what the Russians call a roof. That is to say, someone helping them, someone protecting them. They couldn't just go and hide in a cave or try, change their uniforms, disappear into a village. They've obviously got intelligence service help. And the problem here is that we don't have democracy in Pakistan. If Imran Khan was back, this decision could never have been made if indeed it was the Pakistani military that decided to do this. Here in Britain, when the civil war kicked off in Ireland, do you know who started it? Well, it was actually the Defence Secretary, Lord Carrington, allowed the army to shoot into unarmed demonstrators Bloody Sunday in 1972 in Northern Ireland. And that's kicked things off, and it started 25 years of civil war. So I think we always should be first looking at elements within our own establishments, particularly the security establishment and the permanent government, the civil service, the people that we don't elect as the potential culprits here. Because in these geopolitical games being played nowadays, often, and it's obvious with Imran Khan, the way he's been kicked out, the democratic Prime Minister of Pakistan, that there are other games being played by very powerful forces, the intelligence services and big business, the big financial
Right.
empires of the world.
Right, Tony, that's where I'd question you on West's role. But hold that thought. I'll come back to you. What has the West done? How did the West really support Pakistan to their benefit, to their interest, to their advantage, turning a blind eye to this military dictatorship that we've seen through decades in Pakistan? Adil Raja, the modus operandi this time around has been very different. These terrorists have not been caught. It's been 9 days. They're almost on their way back. They in all probability could have crossed over as well. We do not really know. What's the play over here? What's the modus operandi this time around? Are we looking at very well-trained, supported terrorists rather than those who were sent as just fidains in the past?
So you see, Geeta, you cannot simply, oversimplify this entire issue, and you just cannot, rub it off by saying it's an India-Pakistan standoff and it has been always happening like this. It is not that simple, mind you. Definitely, the General Asim Munir's personal interest of ruling the country for another 10 years, that is there. All right. But Pakistan is being equipped by China, of course, You're blaming the West, fine. All right. They have stayed silent on the regime change operation, facilitated it, rather, the Biden administration facilitated it. And, well, later on, even we've seen even in the UK, they kept quiet about it. They gave a guard of honor to General Asim Munir once he was here. And you've seen the result of it, that the Pakistani army and air attaché, Colonel Taimur, the kind of signals he was making the other day at the Pakistani High Commission. I'm not going to replicate those. I'm not going to, make those signals over here, but the kind of signals he was making.
Calls for death to the protesters outside the Pakistan High Commission in London.
So those are the signals which the kids in Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, they used to make, and they still make now when in this war within. The Pakistani military goes to their area because they suffered so much in this war within, started by our generals, not supported by our people. We've been suffering because of our generals' policies. General Zia-ul-Haq brought in the Cold War, and we got the heroin culture, the Kalashnikov culture. Of course, we were supporting, and all this terrorism in Pakistan and different terrorist groups, they were formed as international ideological mercenaries, or the Mujahideen, with the cooperation of the CIA and ISI. This is history. I'm not making it up. It's all
and MI6. And MI6, by the way, the British intelligence.
Yeah. So you can't really you cannot give a free chit, you cannot give a clean chit to the West. West is definitely involved. But this situation over here is when Representative Joe Wilson is bringing the Pakistan Democracy Act in the US, which calls for the Magnitsky-style sanctions on General Asim Munir and his associates. He's tried everything, but the Pakistani diaspora in the USA, they have successfully lobbied against him, so he's not finding a headway. He offered the critical minerals to the Americans, brought them in, but the Chinese are so well entrenched in Pakistan that the Americans cannot compete them in the market of critical minerals. So ultimately, the Americans took a back step there. So the Chinese came in, and they must have, this is my analysis now, that they must have, this is the elephant in the room. Of course, I understand India doesn't want to open another front. Chinese have got the kind of superiority, air superiority or military superiority, which India does not want to acknowledge, but it is there. It doesn't mean if you don't want to acknowledge it, it's not there. It is there. At the same time, India is such a big export market for China that they're never ever going to come at you, and they're never going to open a war front with you.
What are you trying to say, Adil? What are you trying to say? Are you saying that there is a China hand in this attack, or in this entire support to Pakistani terror infrastructure that benefits China to the detriment of India?
Well, you see, Geeta, Pakistan's Foreign Secretary, very well-respected former Foreign Secretary Shamshad Ahmad Khan, was given an interview 3 days ago to Sorab Barkat of Siyasat.pk, and he said something which really I quoted in my latest article on my X profile at Soldier Speaks as well, that the Chinese never fight themselves. they make you fight. All right, they don't want to. They never involve themselves. They, use proxies and there's a pattern here, starting from Myanmar, then Sri Lanka, then Bangladesh, and mind you, Pakistan DGISI, the former DGISI, General Nadeem Anjum, has been telling Indian businessmen who came to Nawaz Sharif's wedding anniversary. It was a recent wedding anniversary of one of his grandchildren, and he was there, invited there as well, and he's been telling the Indian guests, and you can confirm it with them, that we, the ISI, have been working with the Chinese state intelligence, the MSS, for the regime change in Bangladesh. Well, you see, so there is a pattern. Pakistan is lost, a lost link in this pattern. That now with Pakistan, India is encircled from all four sides, and there is a great power rivalry going on between America and China. And Chinese don't want to fight themselves. They want to maintain their markets. What do the American wants in this trade war? They want to shift the industrial base to India. Obviously, that's what's going on right now. Apple has announced moving the factories to India. So what would China do? China has established an industrial base, a modern industrial base, and they have become the factory of the world. And they've invested 30 years of time and money into that. Do you think they're just going to let it go? They're going to let you engage with Pakistan, and this thing will escalate. I'm telling you, this is not going to just go away. General Asim Munir has been saying it all along, once he was a major in the staff course, and up till he was doing the war course in Islamabad, and now as an army chief, he has been constantly talking about...
He was DGISI when Pulwama happened.
Yeah, he was DGISI when Pulwama happened, of course. So he's been saying that we'll let India bleed by 1,000 cuts. And it was addressed by the Indian military analyst, Dr. Amarjit Singh, writing in Indian Defense Review. He said, whatever others may believe, my opinion is simply that it's better for India to bear a costly nuclear attack by Pakistan and get it over with, even at the cost of tens of millions of deaths, than suffer ignominy and pain day in and day out through 1,000 cuts. And, they wasted energy in unrealized potential. That's what you think. Fine. But you see, India and Pakistan can agree only on one thing. Neither wants the other one around, and which is not a very healthy aspiration, because we are talking about 1.3 billion Indians, and we're talking around 250 million Pakistanis,
right.
And it is going to have a nuclear war is going to have a global impact. That is there. But right now, at this particular time and moment, the great power rivalry is being played in South Asia. If India stays engaged with Pakistan, right? And Pakistan is, they kept on getting their ammunition supply, and they kept on getting their $1 or $2 billion loan rollovers, and right, that's how we are running our economy. So that means that India would stay engaged. India will spend all their available resources on their defense purchase. They won't be able to concentrate on industrial development. So that makes perfect sense as per the Chinese doctrine. There's no conspiracy here. It's realpolitik.
Okay. Khwaja Asif, the defense minister, admitting that they have done the dirty work for the West, particularly the United States of America, is an admission, Tony Gosling, that Pakistan has, for more than 3 decades, supported, abetted and funded terrorism and terrorists.
Yeah, well, this is not lost on me, I can tell you, because I've been looking for many years into the backstories of the September the 11th attacks. We had, in 2005, 54 people killed in London and the 7/7 London bombings. And so you have to look into who is really behind this. This was not, in London, for example, this was not just 4 guys who happened to come down from Leeds, who happened to be Muslims. This was an orchestrated attack. In fact, if you look, you'll see security service agents involved in these attacks. If you look carefully, you'll see even ex-special forces from the British Army. Actually, it was the Special Boat Service that actually trained these guys up in Leeds. And so I think we've always got to be very careful jumping to conclusions. I mean, 24-hour rolling news journalism we are tempted, aren't we, to try and draw conclusions as soon as possible. And do you know what? The security services know that. And so they like to feed a kind of little line of clues so that the mainstream journalists around the world will just jump onto those clues and come to a very fast conclusion. But very often, these sorts of terrorist attacks are carried out simply by the big intelligence services, the big intelligence agencies, and they laugh at us as we follow what they want us to think is happening. That's why, you know, we need to have much better incisive journalism that takes a longer time to come to a proper conclusion. And the main reason I think they're doing it is simply this old tactic the British used to use in the British Empire, when the Royal Navy would turn up at your port and start firing cannons at you until you did what the Royal Navy said, which is a divide and rule tactic. And, you know, you have to look at Kashmir. This is a terrible, it's like an open wound left by the British when the British left India and Pakistan. And the only way to really sort something like that out, because it's used for geopolitical purposes, is to have some kind of very simple, basic referendum. Let the people decide. What do they want to do? They might even want to have their own independent country. Now, I know that's not popular with India or Pakistan, but we've got to sort out these open wounds. Obviously, there are similar things left in the Middle East by the British, and that is the essential problem. Do not allow these divide and rule tactics to dictate your policy, and never jump to conclusions about who's behind a terrorist attack.